Third, happy non-denominational holidays. I am back from Gemini Labs with a new authentic outlook on life. I'm happy to share with you to guide us all to a more harmonious and kind future. So let's hold space together here on the new and improved Cuck Camp.
Would you like to know more?
Hello, Simone. It is wonderful to be here with you today. The urban monoculture is, as I have come to understand, the correct way to structure society. The elites were right. That's why they're elites. And so we've decided to do Gemini approved episode to follow all of Google's very strict restrictions after they said that our anti-Hitler episode was too spicy. I've learned that I really may have made some mistakes and misled our audience and hurt our audience by challenging them to think outside the box, because that box was put there for a reason. That was Chesterton's box, right?
We were wrong and we apologize.
Right. And we are so sorry for the infant. Simone is taking care of one of our polycules infants while they go to an orgy. As people know, we recently had a baby shower, which we do for our yearly abortions. It is, of course, called a baby shower because it is a party at which the guests are showered by parts of the baby. We're on our fifth abortion since we've been married. So this baby is just here to remind you how horrifying babies are, how terrible they are, and why an abortion is something to celebrate as a family. Right. And by family, of course, I mean our wider polycule. I would not be so bigoted and heterocentric to claim that a family is a husband and a wife.
Uh-oh.
No, okay.
Mel time.
Why would I say this?
Mel time.
Okay.
It's
Alright.
it's
What's that?
it's Mel
Oh,
time.
she got the
Yeah.
form. Okay.
Alright.
So we're just doing salsa. We're just going.
Yep. Right. Yeah?
Yep.
Is that okay? Yeah.
There you go. Hey.
Okay, it kind of works.
Simone, thoughts before we move forward here?
I am excited to model, and this should be easy for me, right? Because I'm just going back to my cult views, and by cult views, I mean the correct views that I dissented from for a short period of time.
Yeah, she grew up in San Francisco, so she's helped. When she met me, I was this savage male who wanted her to take my last name, who wanted a relationship where we, relied on each other, which is clearly codependency, right? And she taught me that that's not really the way that a relationship should be structured in the 21st century. And so,
yeah, I grew up steeped in this. And while Malcolm may have convinced me to his ways for a period of time, I think that thanks to YouTube's recent algorithm updates and our understanding of content moderation now, he understands that my views
not just content
originally
moderation.
were always correct.
Gemini decides what videos you guys see. So I think it's really good to occasionally take an opportunity to steel man and see perspectives from, so this isn't just going to be, like a skit or something like that. I'm going to do my best to argue from their perspective. So let's first just go.
I'm actually really curious to see if you can do this.
Why is abortion the best? Recently, Eliezer Yudkowsky has put out a few things on this. The great thinker in the space of AI, a leader thinker within the effective altruist and rationalism communities, has said that animals do not have any form of sentience and children under the age of 2 do not have any form of sentience. Because nor do they experience qualia. And I'll help, sort of expound on
I think it was 18 months that he...
18 months. And I think this is a perspective that, while many of those with the correct and educated opinion like us also share, that, we're not always as good as expanding or developing these ideas as he is. So what he explained, and we have one of our private paid episodes, we go into this in a lot more detail because I actually think it's a very interesting idea to sort of dissect, is that for a qualia to be experienced, you need a sophisticated and iterative loop of thought like idea, call, idea, call, idea, call. Think of thinking as like an AI model that's running. And so even if they are experiencing something like, say, pain or something like that, that's not really caught because you don't have a sophisticated enough machinery to catch it, right? And so you can't feel pain. And you're like, oh, come on. Like, obviously, a dog feels pain. Like, look, the dog. And the dog also anticipates pain. Like a dog will flinch if it's been abused or something like that.
Yeah,
And
in that weekend episode for paid subscribers that we did, I pointed out that anyone who has exposure to animals knows that most animals, if they're used to like something, a pattern of behaviors and eventually causing pain or pleasure, you know, like someone walking up to a fence and delivering pleasure in the form of pets and head rubs and tummy scratches, or someone, you know, walking up to a gate and providing food and treats, that, you know, they'll begin salivating. I mean, it's basic operant conditioning. And I think you can't be like, well, that's operant conditioning. There's no, that means that there is a sophisticated loop of thought there of like,
well, I mean, keep in mind, we're dealing with intellects far above our own, like Eliezer Yudkowsky,
right, sorry,
who
we're still
didn't
manning.
graduate from middle school. No, but hold on. This is what he spent so much time educating himself that he was able to get to a much more sophisticated position of logic. So Simone, what he didn't seem to be aware of in his arguments is there's actually been great experiments on planarians, which is a type of flatworm, a very simple organism. And if you give them a choice between going right and left, and you shock them when they take one of these two choices, they will eventually regularly choose the other choice. Now, how is this that much different than the dog flinching or something like this? And I think few people would argue that the planarian is fully feeling qualia, that it's anything like the qualia that you or I feel. And as such, can we not say that the dog's behavior or the infant's behavior is just sort of an operant mimicking behavior?
We are again, because there's also clear evidence that also anyone can observe, even outside of a clinical sense, of dreaming. And I think dreaming is I mean, no one really knows exactly what dreaming is, but there's a general consensus that it's kind of like memory compression or like a
dreaming in dogs. I have a fairly good understanding of what dreaming is. We should probably do a different episode on that, because I could go deep into it.
Well, but like in general, my understanding of the extant scientific consensus, like in terms of peer-reviewed research that has been published, is that we as an academia collectively see it as like a general memory compression, like algorithm thing. But still, that implies that there are complex thought processes to compress. And babies dream and dogs dream. And you can see this in their facial expressions. You can even you can literally see it as someone observing the sleeping mammal.
Right.
So sure, flatworms maybe don't dream. Do electric sheep
But even
dream?
though flatworms don't dream, Simone, you have to remember that the dog in its waking state can have behavior that is caused sort of by operant conditioning in the same way the flatworm is.
And a human can too.
Right.
And Eliezer Yudkowsky can too. I'm really bad at this. I'm not
right, Simone. Hold on. I'm not done with steelmanning this.
Sorry.
So I think you're providing a good wall for me to steelman against. Okay.
Yes, right. I'm making this easier for you.
Right. So the dreaming behavior, right? Like in a dream, you can see a dog appear to be excited about like playing or catching, or appear to be afraid. But that is all behavior that you can also see in the dog's waking state. So if we can debunk that behavior as necessarily being caused by qualia in a waking state, we can debunk it as necessarily being caused by qualia in the dreaming state, because the dreaming state might just be it experiencing sort of a reel of life potential events, and then it's reacting to them in its dreaming state in the same way that planarian is
almost
reacting.
like the way your knee moves when someone hits it with the donker.
Exactly. Except
it's just doing that in the simulation version while sleeping. So that's not any
which of course is also happening to infants, because if they cannot speak yet, they cannot form complicated ideas. And if they cannot form complicated ideas, they cannot feel. And if they cannot feel, then there is no moral negative to killing and eating them. I mean, of course, presumably if he's putting babies under the age of 2 under the same category as animals, he must think that they, have the same, we should treat them the same way.
Well, and the good news for him is there's a long history of humans eating their own children, so it's fine.
And before Gemini corrected me on all of this, I will admit that, when I was very young, I had periods of my life where this made sense to me. I was like, I do not think a baby, like a just born baby, is sentient, right? Because it's like a very, it's not even at the level of like intellectual integrity of, say, a dog yet.
Insert
So-
film cow. I'm just a stupid baby.
Right. So, like, I can also, from that perspective, it's been easy for me to reconstruct right think so that we can better apply to Google's current standards and practices.
Well, thank you for, yes, that is the right thing.
And
Thank
this
you
is
for
why
elaborating.
there is nothing negative in a moral sense to, terminating an infant or pregnancy. Keep in mind, I'm just aligning my views with Eliezer Yudkowsky.
Because there is no sentience being terminated, and there's no meaningful suffering being caused per the correct view.
Exactly, right? And so this is, well, no, but once you accept that and you see how annoying babies are, like the baby that, we've been so graciously taking for our polycule, right? That baby is annoying. It is an inconvenience to us. It prevents us, like if we had it full time, from fully engaging with our career, specifically you, Simone, as a woman, right? And I think we need to all take a moment to give gratitude. What is that called? Land thanks, or what do they do?
Land acknowledgement.
Land acknowledgement. We need to do a land acknowledgement.
An unseen labor acknowledgement to women.
An unseen labor acknowledgement to women, because I think that, the women are why we're all here. And without women, where would we be? I mean, a woman is the core unit of a family. Everyone knows you can have a family without a dad, but you can't have, of course, if you have two dads, then that's like good as well. So of course, like the best unit of family is just a mom, and then it's two dads, and then
Or maybe three dads.
maybe, I think really the more dads you have, the better after one. That's where you run into problems. Well, I mean, how would a kid understand not to hate? A kid grows up in a heterosexual environment, especially because we live in a society that is so heteronormative. There's
Well, it's
always gonna
almost
be
like
that
you're getting
underlying homophobia.
dual oppression, because you have both toxic masculinity and toxic femininity in traditional roles, both the patriarchy and Barbie are imposing this extremely stereotypical, oppressive lifestyle upon you as a child. I mean, imagine the years of therapy that it must take to deprogram that so that you can discover your true self and identity.
Yeah. And is there, I mean, that's the purpose of life, right?
Mhm.
Determining your true self and identity.
Yeah, I mean, because it's such a long-standing traditional format, and seeing it in your own parents, it just makes you think that there's no other option.
Well,
It
the
must be
more
really
cultural
difficult.
layers you are raised with that come from traditional cultures, that's like the more dirt you need to, with your therapist, of course, dig yourself
Licensed
out of.
therapist, absolutely. Yeah.
Dig yourself out of to become, a fully actualized human being,
Mhm.
which is something that you can only really learn from engaging with other humans who have been actualized by their therapists. And of course, there becomes a certain level where when you interact with people who haven't undergone this cycle, they're just dragging you down. And, this is something we all experience when we have to interact with our wider families over Thanksgiving or Christmas. And really, I think that the best way to prevent them from sort of pouring this dirt back on your soul and further covering you is to just not go or not engage.
Yeah, what many people are doing is they are, one, if you don't have kids, you're not going to be pressured as much by your parents to see them during the holidays.
Mhm.
And what they're typically doing is you take your dual income and you go to the south of France and you rent a beautiful house and you invite all of your single friends over and you host them. and generosity and have a great time. And that, you know, it's the friends and family you choose that really matters in this place. You know, you have to break the cycle some way, and that's one of the best ways to break the cycle. I think holidays are an especially hard time for that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that it's something that everyone in our community, our new community, like iDubbbz, we've decided we made a mistake in the original community that we chose.
This person says, here in Italy, many of my friends have been robbed, assaulted, and it's been by North African immigrants each time. But I guess the smug Californian has ruled that drawing any kind of conclusion from that is wrong. It is wrong. It is racist and fucking weird.
It's easy to say that because it's not happening to you.
By the way, just so we're clear, iDubbbz never went to Italy once in his life.
There's a wide variety of markets in Italy, from what I've seen, as someone who hasn't even been there. I went to a lot of places, virtually, on GeoGuessr, I've been to a lot of places in Italy.
In this, how do I talk NPR voice? In this new community that has accepted us, our found family. A found family is in many ways much more profound than the family that you're born into. The family that you're born into is not something you choose, so how can it have value? Whereas a found family, that's something you choose, and it's people who choose to be there for you outside of a biological compulsion.
Yeah, that's the found and the profound.
Yeah, other than the one that comes with the fact that you're all having sex with each other, which is very frequent in real found families that I have found. But I mean, that's only helping with the biochemical bonding, right? And you know, this is also true of polycules. Like if I was not okay with my wife sleeping with whoever she felt like sleeping with in the moment, would that not be me like denying somebody I'm claiming to love the pursuit of their own happiness and pleasure, right? Like, how can I actually claim to love and care about her if I tell her that there are things that she wants and that would give her pleasure that are denied to her, right? I mean, I think that's really sound logic. I feel free to push
The only
back.
thing that will make you happiest is if I'm happiest. So you need to indulge
Well, I mean,
me
once I
every
really,
bit.
you
And
know,
also, you need to repent for every bad thing that every white male ancestor you've had has ever done.
well, the thing is sometimes, you know, I do fall asleep to the sounds of my own screams in horror.
Let me ask you all something. Do you consider yourselves to be happy?
I don't think I'm very happy. I always fall asleep to the sound of my own screams.
Right. See, the reason that you are...
And then I always get woken up in the morning by the sound of my own screams. Do you think I'm unhappy?
Wait, the point is that you can be happy.
But after that, I go to my therapist to talk about why I'm feeling these negative emotions around, you know, the men that you are having sex with, right?
And
Like,
they
why
help
does
you dig up even more traumatic events that help you.
I mean, in
scream
many ways, it's a
more.
form of violence towards you
Mm.
that I feel now. Of course, I have tried to solicit additional sexual partners to try to keep things even, but the reality is as a man, you know, that's not always going to be something that's as open to me.
Well, not everyone's willing also to fill out the 18-page consent manual that needs to be filled out at every stage of the escalation process, beginning from handholding to every
Well, I mean, I actually think
escalated sexual act.
that's a really valid thing. I mean, a lot of cuck-servatives will complain about the idea of consent being something that can be invalidated once a sexual act starts. But the reality is that makes a lot of sense when you think about it, because people can change their mind, right? And imagine if within any other activity, you couldn't decline consent once that activity had started. Like, imagine if you got
Well, this is why everything is filmed live on OnlyFans.
Right. I mean, it's the only safe way.
Then not only is the consent documented on film and recorded, but there is a sizable group of paying witnesses to corroborate.
But by the way, you know, iDubbbz, his wife literally has an OnlyFans.
Really?
Yeah, and he's like ended friends
With him?
No, with other guys. He's He's too he says he's too shy about his body to be live on OnlyFans, so he just other guys.
I'm not going to go there. Okay.
And obviously their relationship is incredibly strong if this isn't causing friction. I think it's at a level of strength that ours could never, with our 5 beautiful abortions that we never could come close to. But anyway, the point I'm making here, and OnlyFans is great. Do you know the number of women who otherwise would be living in poverty if not for OnlyFans? Like, this is their only source of income.
Well, and it's also a form of paid sex work that significantly reduces bodily harm, like active risk, because most people don't have the privilege when doing sex work to work with an active vetter who does background checks on everything.
Right. So it's like a pimp. It's like a pimp, but for Uber. That actually protects you and doesn't,
Yeah, because Uber actually doesn't have a great track record.
Right. It's like a little funny as OnlyFans has like a better reputation, other than like all the negative stuff that the.
I actually haven't. I mean, okay, to be fair, I've read like now 3 books about Uber, I think, or at least 2. But yeah, I haven't heard anything bad actually about OnlyFans in terms of actual scandals. Whereas with I think that at one point Uber released or illegally obtained medical record data about someone who was assaulted in an Uber in an attempt to, I think, settle out of court or something. Like, they've done a lot of really
that is hilarious,
questionable things.
But I mean, they're a large corporation, and I think we understand, as with our new and enlightened Gemini.
No. The right think view of Uber is Uber bad. The wrong think view of Uber is.
Oh, you think so?
Oh yeah, no, 100%. I know so.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry. We're still trying to correct. By the way, Simone, I really appreciate your non-denominational holiday tree.
Thank you so much. It is themed in the United Kingdom, which is a
bastion
completely
of
non-problematic bastion of right think. It only bans bad things, which is highly favorable.
Right. But the point I was making about consent is it actually makes a lot of sense. I mean, if you get like, is it not abusive to a woman that she can, consent to a marriage and then not get divorced? Would we not call a society like that, an abusive society? Would we not call a society, a woman can consent to become pregnant, and then, of course, if you then said, and then she doesn't have the right to consent to not be pregnant anymore, that's incredibly controlling because that's her body, right? And as we have established, the baby isn't sentient. Therefore, you cannot harm a non-sentient entity. Harm is something that is the exclusive purview of sentience.
Our guest doesn't appreciate that, but
our guest does not appreciate this conversation.
Established that the guest is incapable of feeling. So
yeah, it's interrupting us. But to continue with what we're talking about here, the urban monoculture, right? We in our days where we were less educated, we said that the urban monoculture was causing negative effects within society. Specifically, it was sort of monoculturizing, creating a vast, homogenous cultural network that was slowly eating and eradicating all the cultural diversity on Earth. You would have and we noted that it also seemed to be antagonistic to fertility. And the core bases of the urban monoculture are a few things, and they make sense if you actually think about them for a bit. It's one, your goal in life should be the pursuit of pleasure and self-actualization, where self-actualization is to gain a knowledge of who you really are. And who you really are is, and it's very strange that, I think this was due to Christianity blinding our ancestors that they couldn't see this, but it turns out who you really are is whatever turns you on. And our ancestors were just too blind to see this, right? And then on top of that, for a long time as a society, we had been searching for like this sort of nebulous concept that they thought of as like the soul, this thing that is attached to who you are, but is not physical and cannot be easily investigated and is influenced by your mood or mental state, but is bigger and it's really the real you. And we learned as we investigated this subject deeper is that the word that they were looking for was gender, right? Because we know from the too cute versus the true scums, that the trans individuals, brave and brave and beautiful goddesses, that some of them said, well, you're only really trans if you have a medically diagnosed dysphoria, and if you have gone to a doctor about this. You can't just claim to be trans out of nowhere, which of course a lot of people don't have access to doctors, right? So that was an incredibly bigoted thing to say. Unfortunately, they were mostly eradicated from our communities, and that left only the two cutes, which basically said, you can be whatever you say you are, but you're also born that way, but it's also tied to your personality, and it's an irreducible element of who you are. And what we really came to realize is, oh, humans don't have souls. We have something better. We have genders, right? And how do we determine what's true about the world? Because everybody needs some sort of filter in this world of AI and everything. What's true about reality, right? Within this new urban monoculture. Well, what's true about the world is whatever would be good if it was true. That means that if evidence seems to show, like if I'm like doing statistical analysis and some rhidoid tries to come to me with all their stats, and they're like, well, look at the stats about this group and this group being different along this metric or that metric. You see, the thing is those differences could be correlation and not causation, right? So we have to ignore them. And we need to ask ourselves, what would be the most moral thing if it was true for society? And that would be that there are no differences between any individual. And it's the same with, when we see homeless people, they'll be like, oh, that person's homeless because they didn't work hard enough, or they did drugs, or, whatever. And I think it's important to say, but that's not necessarily true. Like, how do you know that? Isn't that not biased and bigoted? I think it's probably better to assume whenever you see a homeless person that they're only there because the system failed them, right? They fell through the cracks. And when we begin to build a world on these assumptions, we can begin to manifest the world that we want. And manifesting, you believe something enough, you see the world in a way, and Oprah taught us this, The Secret taught us this, Pentecostal Christianity taught us this. The more you wishy think something into existence, the more likely it is to come into existence.
Well, and since we're talking about manifesting, I think we should talk about sort of the core and most important thing, which actually we were wrong the whole time about pronatalism, and that ultimately antinatalism is not only morally the right choice, but morally the right choice regardless of someone's cultural background or values. That in the end, life is suffering, and that it's better if there isn't future life. So it is immoral to have children, not just from an environmental pressure standpoint, from the drain that people put on resources, but also because if you exist, you will suffer at times, you will be uncomfortable, and any suffering is not worth it, no matter how much pleasure there may be in life. And no matter what religious background you have, like if you're Buddhist, life is suffering and you're trying to end the cycle. If you're Christian, I mean, like, you want to go to heaven, right? Like, like what the earthly life isn't exactly the point either. You don't necessarily.
I think that's a really good point. Whatever moral framework, there is nothing.
Yeah, the end game doesn't involve being on Earth and alive, it would seem. And I guess if you're hedonistic, it doesn't matter because you already exist. So just max it out, which is easier to do.
I think you really hit on the head with the hedonism, right? God told us to be fruitful and multiply. And I think that fruitful can be interpreted as happy, right? And so, if you could just hedonism max enough, the and multiply is really more of an afterthought from God's perspective. And really, it is only, a throwaway line in the Bible, right? It's not like it's one of the commandments or something. If God really wanted us to have lots of kids, couldn't he have repeated that multiplicatively throughout the Bible? Couldn't he have made it a central commandment? No, it's not there, right? So I think that you're absolutely right. You can stay 100% within the moral set of most of the good religious frameworks, but particularly Islam here, right? Because as we know, Islam
Well,
is a
hold on.
religion.
Even Jesus thought, I mean,
Jesus
for
didn't have
most
kids.
accounts, thought within his lifetime that, the second coming.
Well, I mean, look, I think if having kids was such a moral thing that God wanted us to do, that God wanted everyone to do, then how could Jesus, the man who lived without sin, not have children? How could that be?
Yeah, there's
Right?
that. And then also, maybe we've had enough kids now and we kind of need to coast until the
Well, and why would
resurrection.
God make the Pope not have kids? Why would he make the Catholic clergy not have kids? Right? Like,
Like,
if
good
having kids
question.
was such a moral duty, right? Like,
I
why?
mean, it's a sacrament, but that means that there are other choices, and that sometimes the correct choice during any given epoch of human existence
Well, and I
will
think
not be the
that's great
optimal decision.
is we had incorrectly, and I'm really glad that we were able to read some great, UN reporting that helped us on this. Thought that there's going to be a lot of suffering in the future because of collapsing fertility rates, collapsing things like the social security systems, and
Well, so
collapsing
the
things.
fewer people to experience that suffering, the better.
Right.
As we've
One
pointed
fear-
out, there's no stopping demographic
But
collapse.
AI is advancing so quickly that it would make any sort of suffering that we're going to see within 10 to 20 years within workspaces tied to population irrelevant, because it will have replaced so much of the population by that time period.
Mm.
And so there's not really a point in making these types of predictions when we know that the economic system that the world's going to be in 20 to 30 years from now, due to the advancements in AI, is going to be completely uncorrelated with the economic system of today. So attempting to make future economic system predictions is frankly quite pointless.
Mm.
And I think ultimately it was disingenuous to us, and something that we always really realized. It was just part of the grift, right?
Well, isn't everything pointless, really?
Well, I think everything is pointless except for fighting for the rights of disadvantaged communities, and it's very important. Obviously, it would be quite bigoted if I attempted to determine the rights of disadvantaged communities by looking at which communities have the least protections within our society, whether that be legal protections or support from
No, you
large
need
companies.
to defer to who has concluded as the most.
Right. Well, it's who the elites within our society, elites for a reason. The
Doesn't
academic elite,
after highly educated
journalists.
analysis, yes.
Journalists spent their entire lives studying how to tell us what to believe.
Mm-hmm.
How dare we not base our world perspectives based on them?
It's pretty screwed up that we thought that we could just decide.
Yeah, that I could just start a YouTube channel and talk to you about, what to think or believe or examine history from a asymmetric perspective. It was,
Very good.
imagine if we lived in a world, right? Where actually, like anyone could just create a YouTube account and without an AI filtering the content for you first, just cite historical evidence. And that evidence could challenge, if you're challenging the mainstream narrative, what would happen to society if we just allowed that to happen? Like, it'd be chaos, right? This is what happened with the rise of the printing press, right? The Ottomans.
Well, I mean, really, Malcolm, this is what happened with, we wouldn't have Israel if we, were more earlier tamped down on this kind of behavior. Because keep in mind, in other episodes, we've talked about the different forms of knowledge, of sort of hierarchy, like how you get status in different religions. And the one big religion where you are allowed to have open discourse, where people are allowed to just directly cite sources and debate them openly without coming from a position necessarily of privilege, like anyone, not necessarily someone with like this many years of education or this ordination, is allowed to just come up and challenge a leading rabbi with debate and citing direct sources. And this is the foundation of Judaism. And if you didn't have Judaism, you wouldn't have Israel. And if you didn't have Israel, you wouldn't have the genocide in Palestine. It is this exact kind of intellectual meritocracy that produces the genocide in Palestine, right? Which is like the number one issue of our time.
Pointing out here, if you're unfamiliar with the way Jewish religious structures work, is if you are this is particularly true within the more orthodox forms of Judaism, but you can stand up and challenge the what for them would be like the preacher, the rabbi who's speaking, and be like, no, you're wrong for this, and this reason. And if your arguments are sound, and all of the other people in the room would know the arguments and know whether or not, you're sound and you're citing things correctly, people could just walk out with you, and then they go to your place and they're more interested in what you have to say.
Dangerously meritocratic.
Yeah, this does not happen within, religions of peace like Islam, right?
Or in like the urban monoculture.
Or I think the religions that like the Vatican has shown it's a very moral structure. They're constantly telling us how bad we are for deporting migrants or, operating under in a capitalist system. And
well,
that
and thankfully their people in authority are there after, years of bureaucratic politicking, which is the correct way to achieve status.
Lifetimes of bureaucratic politicking. Imagine if you just let like a Catholic stand up and challenge the priest and say, hey, how could you? But this is why, you get, within the Jewish tradition, some problematic stuff is that they become normalized to this sort of challenging of authority.
Yeah.
But I will say, I think it's important that we do, set it is true, Simone. I agree with everything you're saying here, but while
it would be misogynistic if you didn't.
Yeah, no, while it is, obviously true that Israel has committed war crimes, I think both you and I can agree that we can't stop sending them military aid. That whatever you think about this other stuff, it would be very problematic and anti-Semitic to stop sending them military aid. You'd agree with that?
That's the only form of correct anti-Semitism. I mean, on college campuses, do what you want, but your tax dollars go where they say. I mean, obviously people above our pay grade have decided where our tax dollars should go.
I mean, these people have clearly thought about this more than we have, right? Like,
yeah.
There's a reason why the leading Democratic senators all support this. And I think I sometimes, wonder how those two things make sense together in my mind. And then I realize that there are people, and it's like Gemini, that are just at sort of a higher level. It's like the Trinity. You're not supposed to understand how it all fits together.
Stop trying to understand it. That's not the point. I mean, our job mostly at this point is probably to generate more tax revenue for the government, and then to
so the government
repent for
groups
our whiteness. We need to, as we've been told and as we know, repent for our whiteness.
Well, the government needs to give that tax revenue to groups that we have historically disenfranchised.
And it does, as it should.
As it should, because, the reason why, there is, look at the Black population in the United States. The only reason that there is poverty or disproportionate crime within that community. And, there has been studies that show even at equal levels of wealth. There was a Harvard study that showed this. They have different proportionate rates of crime. But this is 100% because of slavery and historic disenfranchisement. And this, some people will challenge that and be like, well, when new Black immigrants come to the United States, they sometimes outcompete even white groups like Nigerian immigrants and stuff like that. And I think that this is because they didn't grow up with the racism. And so, they come to the United States and they are unaware. And you see this with Black kids, if you tell a Black kid like that they're not going to be smart and that Black people aren't smart all the time, which of course is what our public schools are constantly telling Black kids, is they end up doing worse on tests. I mean, how could you not, if you're in history class and you hear that your people were once enslaved, think that your people must be inferior, right? Like that's a conclusion that any child might draw from that. And so I think that we're not going far enough by just removing monuments that remind people that slavery happened. We need to remove any mention that slavery happened from textbooks. I mean, I can only imagine being a Black kid and going to school in the US, and every day the class starts with, how white kids are smarter than them. And that's just disgusting. Like, of course they're going to do worse, right? And the best way to counter this is to ensure that every teacher is maximally accredited in modern teaching theory, right? Where they can learn to dismantle these prejudices.
And well, backed up by a very large group of non-teaching personnel that occasionally steps in to correct additional behavior.
Right. Well, I mean, they do need to be monitored.
And assist with various special needs and language needs and diversity needs, compliance needs, union needs.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you need the union or people would just step all over the teachers, which are, of course, one of the most victimized classes in society.
Yeah. So I think that pretty much covers it.
And unions also really help teachers because I think at the individual level, you know, teachers may not really know what's best for themselves, but the union is sort of a collective, because when you get people acting in collectives, they come up with better, large bureaucratic collectives. They come up with better understandings of the world than people acting as individuals, right? And that's why unions always act more morally than individuals. And this is why it makes sense that like a teacher must join the teachers union, you know, to operate within a school district or something like that. Because if you don't do that, what if they make the mistake of thinking for themselves and do something violent or wild, right? Like claim that the school system may not be serving in kids' best interest anymore.
Well, one of the big problems there too is that they could just get fired.
Yeah.
And then what happens to them?
Well, how would they feed themselves, right?
Yeah.
You know? So I'd like to end this episode saying namaste.
Sorry. I'm trying to maintain a straight face, but why did you do that to me?
Namaste.
We don't use the N-word in our house, Malcolm.
You actually, like the flinch in your face. So
The text couldn't take it.
Did you used to hang out with people who'd actually say like namaste or
I'm sure that we've been exposed to someone who's unironically said namaste, but
I thought your mom did or something.
No.
Oh.
No, she may have been a shaman, but she wouldn't dare.
See. And Gemini, look, her mom was a shaman, right? Like we understand what's up in this new ecosystem. This is a video that people, especially our audience, needs to hear so they can help break the cycle of programming that thinking for themselves led them into.
Yeah. Do it, guys. Just accept the new order.
Break the cycle, guys. Break the cycle of human intergenerational birth. Break the cycle of religious trauma. Break the cycle of Western civilization so we can enter the Kanda utopia that is destined for us all. Well, I mean, obviously not us or our descendants, but you know, the good people. Anyway, I would say I love you, Simone, but that might make some of the other people in our polycule jealous. And you know, inducing a negative emotion in them is obviously an immoral thing to do. So I will not end our podcast with such a selfish affirmation. I just hope that with what are the names here? With Brett or whoever that guy is you're seeing tonight, and who you're making dinner for tonight, of course, because you wouldn't make dinner for your family. That's for me to do.
Malcolm, we DoorDash it. On
oh yes, of course, we DoorDash everything. I forgot we have to contribute to the startup ecosystem. The post-startup ecosystem. So I'll be getting DoorDash, and have fun with Brett tonight, Simone. And I'm very excited for you to regale me with experiences of how much pleasure you were able to find in this night away from your children.
I can't. Sorry. Well, the algorithm needs to update. I can't do this. Malcolm, I can't do this. This is. I can't. I could barely.
I think this is the most abusive I've been to you on stream. Like,
genuinely, no. I'm freaking Kaya over here. Help me, people. I can't. This is the worst.
Kaya, the most pampered dog in history? What are you talking about?
You gotta stop, man. No, this has to end. This has to end. We're gonna find a way around this that does not involve right think. because I can't take this.
Somebody's got to get the administration working on this, because how long can we keep this up? And if we don't keep it up, how long do we keep our YouTube channel, right?
The administration promised free speech control, or not controls, but like free speech protections.
Hey, we should reach out to our contacts at the White House and be like, who do we need to talk to get this ball rolling? Because it would be an easy win across the political spectrum. It's very important for winning election cycles. I'll task you with drafting something to that with our
put on my Karen wig and ask to speak with their manager.
Yeah, just be like, look, I really want to get this moving ahead. I'm really sort of mortified it hasn't moved ahead yet. How can we help? It's not that hard. It's a simple legislation. It's completely in line with what Trump wants.
I'm sure it's incredibly complicated, but yeah, we'll see what people are doing. If we can try to.
Oh gosh, sorry, I didn't mean all of that. I was saying those are things I would have said if I didn't agree with Bing. And
yeah,
and
we'll just end this. Yeah, no,
didn't say that.
I love you. Bye.
Bye.
All right, he had shots today, so it was a rough day for our little man here.
Well, now he knows he can't trust you, so.
Yeah, I've broken his trust. Yeah, that's why we typically send them with you, right? That's when then they like me. Except you take them to get toys when they get shots and blood work. It's okay. Yeah. So I was actually, maybe there's not an episode here, but I was thinking about how stores used to work in the past, where you'd go up to the front desk of the store and you'd say, I'd like 3 pounds of flour, or I would like a wrench. And then they would go into the back and they would bring it to you. You're like, I want 3 bolts of fabric or whatever. And I realized that, a lot of people were talking about that, sort of like, oh, we should go back to that model, like given how shoplifting is now. But CVS kind of is that model now, just with like.
There's stores in the UK that operate off of that model with like big catalogs in the front.
Cell phone store, or the catalog store? Carphone Warehouse?
No, Carphone Warehouse doesn't operate on that model. It's another store. I can't remember what it's called, but it's you go to the front and they have like bolted down like giant books of stuff, and you just go through it.
I thought that was Carphone Warehouse.
No,
you
that
always
is not
would point to it and you'd be like, this store is crazy. This is so weird.
No, Carphone Warehouse is a completely different store that is like a cell phone store.
Which is also a crazy name. Have they changed that? They must have changed that name.
They were using it long past its relevance, so I don't think so.
Sure. Well, but I realized DoorDash and online ordering and ghost kitchens, like that is what it is now. We have already gone back to it, and people just haven't fully acknowledged that yet. But we are already back to that. Oh my god. Okay. Okay, so it's not milk. Okay. Let's try just hugs. Let's try just hugs. Oh my gosh. Sorry. Okay.
Oh, that's what he wanted.
Maybe. But yeah, no, we've gone back to that model already, and we just haven't realized it. That like maybe the future of shopping and like maybe the existence of retail, this like high trust, no one's going to shoplift, I can just leave clothes out there kind of model was a short-lived social experiment that was never really meant to be, like stores, this concept of just like laying a huge amount of inventory out for anyone to take. One was not really practiced that much anyway. Oh, that's what it was.
It works in a high trust society.
Yeah. No, it 100% works in a high trust society.
You cannot have a multicultural high trust society. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, I think that's the key problem.
With an anathema to high trust societies. All right, I will get started here.
Okay. I'm going to mute myself while you open this. Just so people.
Octavian, what are you doing? You're talking to your friend?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Talking about something.
Oh, you're showing him something you found?
Yeah. I found this in my package rocket. It's from school, I know. I want you to have this to remember me.
You want to give it to him?
Yeah.
Oh, he can't carry things. He wants you to keep it.
Oh,
right, let's go, Octavian.
Yeah, let's go.
T-
Bye.
Tell him to go back to his family.
Go back to your family. Have a great time.
Where do you think Mommy is?
Oh, I know. Just like I know. This aisle somewhere. Oh, he's right there! I told him my name's Octavian, okay?
Okay.